Anthony Erdwin of Clutch Points. I'm going to read something off here, and at least this was Anthony Erdwin reporting that sources within the organization view Rui Hachimura as the leading candidate to join Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Austin Reeves, and DeAndre Ayton in the opening lineup. Now, again, this is just a report out there. There's nothing guaranteed on it, but I think it's safe to say, I've said this a number of different times. This is the most likely scenario. Whether I agree with it or not is kind of irrelevant. Whether you agree with it or not, don't want to call you guys irrelevant, but you guys know what I'm referring to here, is it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the coaching staff thinks. It matters. There's a lot of factors that are going to come into play. Let me read one more quick piece here. And Redick has given no indication of what the Lakers are going to do in the starting lineup. But just, again, according to the report, Redick, it seems, is favoring chemistry over change. Hachimura has been part of the Lakers core for the past 2 seasons. And again, that has more to do with chemistry than it does trying to make a big change. And then there's also the fact that Marcus Smart, who's been dealing with that Achilles tendinopathy, if I pronounce that right, has already missed the start of training camp. The absence widened the gap between him and Hachimura, who's been fully active and engaged since media day. So it seems like Rui probably will get the edge as far as the starting lineup goes, and we go from there. Now, let me kind of break this down a little bit, and we go from there. First 2 preseason games for me, not that this should indicate whether Rui should be starting or he shouldn't be starting, but without LeBron, without Luka, Reeves not playing in one of these games, listening to Rui Hachimura talk about how the team has asked him over the summer they need him to be more aggressive. I asked the question of Rui during media day as well, that what does aggressive mean to him? Knowing that there are other stars out there. So how does he kind of find his opportunities? So he did mention that, that's obviously always a challenge because you got such great players that he's playing with. But for me, the first 2 preseason games, Rui Hachimura was disappointing. I didn't see an aggressive Rui. I kind of saw a player maybe just running through the motions. But if there's ever a time that he'd have a chance to be aggressive, it's in games where the key players are not there. I'm not telling you that I got an issue with Rui Hachimura, but I think what I'm telling you is in the starting lineup, you guys know what I've been kind of pushing for. I've pushed for Vanderbilt in the starting lineup, and it doesn't have really all that much to do with Rui. It has more to do with I just want more of a defensive presence for the Lakers in the starting lineup. If you told me Marcus Smart was in the starting lineup, I would say, okay, I get it. I understand it. Now, Marcus Smart hasn't played yet. He's injured, so we'll see when he's available, when he's ready, and hopefully when he's close to 100%. But what I keep kind of what I keep coming back to is any lineup that you have in the NBA, I feel like you got to have some balance. And for a lot of people that have concerns, remember, we were having the conversation about should Austin Reeves be starting? Should he be coming off the bench? And I think we all kind of came to the conclusion Reeves is going to be starting. And, I think for Austin Reeves, I don't mind him being a starter. I understand the case to say, well, what if Reeves comes off the bench and you got a little bit more of a balance? But I think you do accomplish that with a guy like Vando or with a guy like Marcus Smart for the reasons I've already laid out before. I did a lot of time on Vando yesterday. I do feel like Vando has been a nice little surprise. I love his energy in the preseason. He looks healthy. Does he have some offensive, lapses? Sure. But what he brings on the defensive side, the fact that he could guard somebody from a backcourt, Steph Curry, Ja Morant, James Harden, Jamal Murray, go look at some of these elite guards in the NBA, I think would really help the Lakers and would help them on the defensive side. But at least it sounds like, according to that report, and again, this is no surprise to me, and it really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody listening to this show, that the fact that if it is Rui Hachimura that ends up starting, then the Lakers are basically choosing chemistry, time. Rui's been in the starting lineup. Maybe other players are comfortable with Rui being in the starting lineup. and then they'll come with some guys off the bench like Vando, Marcus Smart, and Jake LaRavia, and some of those other guys. Jackson Hayes, kind of go down the list of some of those other players that would come in. So that's what it's looking like as far as the starting lineup goes. And I don't think it's a surprise or a shock. The question is going to be, is that going to be the starting lineup that the Lakers end up rolling with for most of the season? And I'm talking about, I'm not talking about an injury changing it. Or do they realize, no, let's have a little bit more of a defensive presence? No, let's try different starting lineups and then figure out at some point down the road what's the right starting lineup for the Lakers. Okay, I'll take a look at some of the comments and see what people think in regards to the starting lineup. All right, first let me do this. For those who are coming in a little bit later today, thank you for being here. LeBron had a huge announcement that was before 9 a.m., and his announcement was his partnership with Hennessy. Hennessy VSOP. So, just so everybody knows, that was the big news this morning. So if anyone was looking for the big news, that was the big news. All right, let me get a couple supers in here. Thank you very much for the super. I greatly appreciate it. I do my best to try to get to as many comments as I can. And most of the comments, one of the things I love about this channel, most of the comments I feel like just adds great content to the show. So I appreciate you guys for always commenting. If you throw a super in, it's 100% going to get read. So thank you for throwing this in. Savans. I'm worried about Smart's injury. There's really nothing you can do with the Achilles but reduce activity. Best case scenario, I think he plays 40 games. Yeah, I've said this before, and I remember when the Lakers got Marcus Smart, buyout market, he decides to come to the Lakers. I did a video, and a lot of Laker fans were very, very excited. It was actually one of the most views I've gotten a video, and I understood why. We automatically think of the Marcus Smart that was in Boston. And what we don't think of is the Marcus Smart that spent the last 2 years just not being able to get on the court. Unfortunately for Marcus Smart, that's part of his story right now. Part of Marcus Smart's story on the Lakers, at least right now, is what's happened the last couple of years to Marcus Smart. I want to read off because I know I have it here. And let me read off exactly how many games Marcus Smart has played over the last 2 seasons. And this will tell a little bit of the story. Let me find it here. So he played in the 2023-24 season. He played 20 games. And then last season between Memphis and Washington, he played about 31 games. So guys, over the last 2 seasons, Marcus Smart has played, under, what is that? Maybe 30% of the games, if you want to call it, just kind of trying to do the math off the top of my head. Where when he was in Boston, he had years he played 80, 60, 71, 61. Obviously he had years in Boston where he was available and he was just a phenomenal player. I love when Laker fans talk about Marcus Smart because, yeah, he was in Boston. Yeah, he was, a Boston Celtic. You didn't have to like him, and you certainly didn't have to like him because he played for the Celtics, but you respected his game. You would love to have a guy like Marcus Smart on the Lakers. So I think the concern about, Marcus Smart is completely fair. I don't think anybody's going to be arguing that. The question for Marcus Smart's going to come down to his availability. Will he be available for the Lakers, or is this going to be a similar path that he's had the last couple of years? He played, I think I said 20 and 31. That's 51 games in 2 years. That's 51 games out of a possible 164. So obviously not a lot of games for Marcus Smart. I think actually probably, around 30%, something like that. So completely fair to have that concern there. And I'm sure that's another reason why the Lakers are going to be very, very, they're going to be very, how do I put it? Not just strategic, but cautious with Marcus Smart. So we'll keep it at that. Okay, let's take a look here on a couple more. Decision on LeBron James is a partnership with Hennessy. Yes, it is. Hennessy VSOP. That's why everybody came here this morning, right? Everybody thought that was going to be the case. Listen, If this was 5 years ago, no one would think that the man is retiring. But because this is getting, so close to that stage where you never know how much more time he's going to be with the Lakers, or not just even with the Lakers, but just in the NBA in general. That's why it also draws up so much interest. LeBron's probably laughing at everybody. And he's also laughing at everybody who's upset that he just did what he did. All right, let's see what we got here. Rui represents spacing. We were talking about the starting lineup. Let me say this here real quick. I get it. I get why people say why they want Rui in the starting lineup. By the way, also Rui's got great size. Obviously he's a player that I think performs better when there's less attention on him. So there's another case to make for Rui Hachimura. The reason for me why I'm not a fan of having Rui in that starting lineup, it also has to do with the fact that you can't really work around your, who guards who now in the backcourt. It's going to be Luka and Austin Reeves guarding elite guards in the backcourt. Has probably more to do with that than it does with anything else. And I'm trying to avoid that. And this is my only way or philosophy to avoid that, because anything else that you kind of look out there, I don't think there's a way to avoid that. Let's see what we got here. Sad we are pinning our hopes on guys like Smart and Ayton. Yeah, but I think you got to understand something. Part of it is pinning your hopes on Ayton and Smart. You're not wrong about that. But what did you really have to do to go get Ayton and Smart? You didn't have to make any changes to your roster to go get those two guys, right? I mean, what are you paying for those guys? There is very, 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 there's actually zero risk for the Lakers in grabbing those two players. There's only upside. You're not going to get a player the caliber of DeAndre Ayton for $6 to $8 million a year. And you're not going to get the upside of a guy like Marcus Smart for $5 million a year. Now, Smart could not be available and you had no risk. And Ayton could be, this could be his final year in the NBA and he just doesn't have any more value in the league. And again, there was no risk. So I get what you're saying about pinning your hopes on those two players, but I still think that there's value in having those two players on the roster. Why the hell do we need 5 offensive in the starting rotation? Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want balance. I really do. I want balance, but people are making a case here. Rui plays off LeBron, but I don't want to make a decision because of what Rui needs. I want to make a decision because what Luka needs. Doesn't Luka need a defender in that starting lineup? Doesn't Luka need to come off one of those guards and go guard a wing player that's kind of a slower version of himself? That's why I don't want to accommodate to Rui. I want to accommodate to Luka, to Austin Reeves, to LeBron, to Ayton, to have another defender and a little bit more help on the defensive side. That's my case for all that. Thank you very much for watching the clip. Just want to give a shout out here to one of our partners, the Wallace Firm. They are official injury attorney of the Sliwa Show and Hoops Talk, the entire channel. If you are ever in a need, and I hope you're not, but some type of serious injury with yourself or a family member of yours, I would like to personally help you by introducing you to the best in the business, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Also got a URL out here that you can use as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for their partnership, and thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show.